Hi, everybody. This is Ken LaValle from Enterprise Bank, and welcome to another edition of Enterprise Bank Presents Dollars and Cents. I'm, of course, with my co-host, Prima Nagathan of Enterprise Bank as well. We'll be speaking to you today from LTC Studios, a beautiful downtown Lowell. So our special guest today is Chris Neville. Chris is a member of the Commonwealth Fusion Center. He has been with the Fusion Center now for several years, but before that, he was a lieutenant with the Wilmington Police Department. And Chris and I became acquainted as a member of the Lowell Police Department. The Wilmington Police Department had representatives on the NEMLEC SWAT team. So oftentimes when the NEMLEC SWAT team came to Lowell to work with Lowell PD, Chris and I would work together as well. So Chris left the Wilmington Police Department as a lieutenant. And while he was at Wilmington, he really became very active in, and very much of an expert in, crime analysis and disseminating information to people in law enforcement about the criminal activities taking place in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So when he retired from the Wilmington Police Department, the Commonwealth, the state police saw and recognized the great work that he was doing and asked him to join the Fusion Center and come aboard and be a member of their team. For those of you who don't know, a Fusion Center is basically a clearinghouse for law enforcement information that is shared with people in federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, as well as the private sector like Enterprise Bank and the institution we represent. And his expertise really is in getting this information out to really identify people who are conducting criminal activity, involved in crimes, and making us aware of them. And as a result of that, we're very, very fortunate to be able to have him as our guest today. He has a great deal of information, a great deal of expertise when it comes to the criminal activity in the region. And Chris, I would just like to ask you, if you don't mind, we recently went to a training session here at the Fusion Center, and we were very much intrigued by what we learned about as the travelers, or they are basically designated as a criminal enterprise, and they work their way across the United States, and certainly they're very active here in Massachusetts, and have been active here recently when I actually experienced a situation where one of our own customers was victimized by a traveler. If you don't mind, Chris, explaining to our audience what a traveler is, and how they conduct their criminal activity and their scams.
Sure, Ken. Thank you for the opportunity to come here today to both of you. Travelers are just like one of the subgroups of what would be transient criminals that operate across the country, as you said. The one that you're speaking with specifically, I think, is a paving scam.
Correct.
What most people, we all should realize it, but we sometimes forget that, when something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Yep. You've probably talked about it on your programming before. When you have somebody come up to your house to try to solicit some work, whether it be paving, could be repairing your gutters, maybe fixing your roof, or looking to get into your house to check the water or electricity, a lot of times the people that are coming up to your house are illegitimate, and they'll have a long litany of excuses and reasons why they either have to get into your house or to do work on your yard or your property. The case you talk about is a lot of times these business people, whether they be legitimate or not, will come up to your house and say, you look like you need your driveway paved, or we can seal coat it, we'll give you a good price. We have some extra material. And this is, there are some groups that are based here in Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. There are other ones that are based different places across the country, but they do travel, and that's why they get the nickname travelers. If they come to your house and they try to negotiate a price with you for, say, $300, and you say, boy, that sounds like a great deal to fix my driveway, and then after a while, when you finish the job and they charge you something along the lines of $3,000 or $30,000, and you go, whoa, wait a minute, what's this all about? And then their excuse is usually to say, well, it was $300 a square foot, or $30 a square foot, and you have 1,000 square feet, so that's why it costs so much. You misunderstood. Mm-hmm. They generally tend to target senior citizens, elderly people, many of whom, for whatever reason, have a lot of money at home in many cases. They put pressure on these individuals. They basically extort them in their own property, and they say, look, I won't charge you the full amount, we'll knock off several $1,000s. And by this time, they threaten legal action, and many times the customer is left thinking, well, maybe if I just pay them, they'll get off my property and leave. Mm-hmm. And that's what probably happened in your case. These people, again, they stay local for a while, and then they'll go someplace else where they're not known, because, as you know, they mess around in their own backyard, they draw attention from local law enforcement, so they make it a point to go 20, 30, 50 miles outside their comfort zone where they're not as well known.
In this particular case, I know that the victim in this case really was aware of the fact that she was being taken advantage of. And after she wrote that check, she obviously had misgivings about actually presenting the check to them. So that she called the bank as quickly as she could to say, please don't cash that check.
Right.
It was too late. They know that they should immediately go to the bank and cash the check and get the money as quickly as possible if they don't get cash themselves when they're at the house.
Right.
But to cash the check, get the money as quickly as possible so they can be on their way, and that's exactly what happened in this case.
Right. A lot of times you'll actually, if the senior citizen doesn't have a checking account, they will accompany that person to the bank.
Right.
They'll drive them to the bank, maybe wait in the lobby where they try to stay out of sight, and then the victim will go up and withdraw a large amount of cash. And unless, in your case, a lot of your tellers are pretty much, in tune to what goes on,
Right.
they'll turn over thousands of dollars in cash, and then the transaction is made usually out in the lobby, and they'll take that individual home. And what's even more sickening is sometimes if they think they have a good mark, that these people have money and they're easily duped, they'll send somebody else. They'll make a mark on the house somehow.
Wow.
And they'll send some other crew back to do some other job, maybe 6 months from now or a year from now.
Chris, now, are these individuals just on foot coming to your door? Do they have vehicles? Do they have something that looks legit?
Well, the paving companies, for example, a lot of times they have a scout that will go out, and they will usually be in a pickup truck. It could be marked. It might be an unmarked pickup truck. Most of them, believe it or not, tend to be fairly new. I think what they do is they lease a vehicle and then they don't return it. They might keep it for a year and a half, and then they disappear. What they'll do is they'll solicit the job. They target individuals who might be outside at their house doing yard work. If they see a house with children's toys, there's a likelihood they're not going to look at that house.
Yeah.
But if they see a senior citizen, somebody that's 70, 80 years old doing yard work, there's a good chance they're going to solicit this person and say, look, we can fix your driveway here. And then within minutes of saying we have some extra asphalt on the truck, we're doing a job down the street, they come up, in a flurry with 3 or 4 or 5 vehicles. There's a small roller.
Yep.
There's a dump truck, a couple of pickup trucks, the hand tampers that actually do the tamping down of the asphalt. And a lot of times, they're in and out of there within a very short period of time. They don't prepare the driveway.
Right.
And again, people lose thousands of dollars, and a lot of times these jobs don't last much more than a couple of weeks.
They do a very substandard job. They put a very thin layer of asphalt on the driveway, and then next time you have a rainstorm, you get a big problem or whatever.
So you have to put in more money to fix it on top of what you
Absolutely.
already gave them.
Absolutely.
So what should community members do when you have somebody like that at your doorstep that you didn't look for, have you done your research? What's your recommendation?
Well, my first recommendation is don't take at face value somebody that's soliciting door to door. Unless they have a very nice program that shows this is the product that we offer and they can prove that they've done that product, do some research on them. If you have internet access, find out, what the company is all about. If they're not listed anywhere, chances are they're not listed anywhere. You won't even track them down if you find them. If you try to find them. So if there's any question at all, somebody is trying to solicit, and it could be a paving job, it could be, again, gutter repair, painting. I've seen some absolutely disastrous repair jobs. Call the police department and ask them if they're registered to solicit in the community.
Right.
I know where I used to work, if you're going to go door to door soliciting any kind of work, you had to register, so we knew who was out in the community. I'm sure Lowell probably has some of the same regulations. So if you have any questions at all, just go in and make the phone call real quickly. And if for some reason you feel intimidated, pick up the phone and dial 911. You don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Because in an emergency, if somebody's in the house in front of you and you're feeling threatened by them, whether it be verbally or just intimidated, at least a 911 call is logged at the police station, and they will send a cruiser out.
Right.
These people don't stick around. And they know if the police are on the way, usually they're on their way out of the neighborhood.
I think that's great advice, is just calling 911 even if you feel intimidated, because a couple of victims that we have spoken to felt the exact same pressure
Yeah.
to just maybe I'll just write the check and get them away and we'll deal with it later, but mentioned, it's sometimes it's too late by the time you call the bank because you've signed the check and you've authorized the payment.
Right.
It might not be much that the bank can do, but calling the police is a
So many people are afraid to call 911 because they think the police are busy doing more important things. Well, if you end up with a $5,000 or $10,000 theft of property or material, that's a major crime. That's going to take
Absolutely.
a long time to try to investigate.
Absolutely.
We would much rather respond to a 911 call where you have somebody that's playing a game and resolve it at that point rather than have to chase it down weeks or months later.
Right. And these people prey on the person's gullibility, and they also say, well, we're going to give you a big discount on this. And you think to yourself, wow, I'm going to save money. So when you're thinking along those lines, and actually you end up losing a lot more money.
Right.
And it's really a shame. And I'll tell you, in this particular case that we looked at, I took your advice. I Googled the name of the company, right, that allegedly did this work. Nothing existed about this company.
Right.
There was no listing, nothing online that said this company existed. So it was a very interesting lesson for that poor lady. I hope that people listen to what we're saying and really take this advice, because you don't want to be taken by these substandard contractors who are taking advantage of people on a regular basis. Well, this has been the first half of Enterprise Bank Presents Dollars and Cents. We hope we've enjoyed this session. We'll be back in a minute with more with Chris Neville.
This program is proudly sponsored by Enterprise Bank, a full-service commercial institution serving 17 communities. Enterprise Bank helps create successful businesses, meaningful jobs, strong, vibrant communities, and opportunities and prosperity for our customers, shareholders, and employees. To speak to an Enterprise advisor, call 978-459-9000 or visit our website, enterprisebanking.com. Enterprise, an independent bank with community at its core. Member FDIC.
I'd like to welcome our audience back to Enterprise Bank Presents Dollars and Cents with Chris Neville as our guest today. So we're talking about the traveler scam, where people are going from household to household trying to rip people off their money. Speaking of households, you mentioned briefly in your conversation that people tend to keep a lot of cash at home, maybe some valuables. And there are some different types of scams that I know we talked before the show. Chris, you want to mention what that might be?
Sure. And for whatever reason it be, and obviously you were in the banking field, so you know where people should put their money in their life savings, but a lot of people, especially senior citizens, have a distrust with banks. So a lot of times they keep extraordinary large amounts of cash at their homes. And the same people that deal with the paving crews are also that there are subsidiaries of their group that also go door to door looking to swindle people out of their money and valuables at home. Some of those people are actually based locally. In my work at the Fusion Center, we've been able to, identify several people, both north and south of Boston, who have a history and a habit of going door to door, pretending to be either water meter readers, electrical inspectors, somebody working for the Water and Sewer Commission. A lot of times they'll have a vest on, they may have a hard hat on, and what they'll do is they'll try to convince the person in the house that there's a problem in their home. We're working down the street, there's a water main leak or there's a gas leak, we have to come in and check your house. So what they'll try to do is get the homeowner, again targeting the elderly primarily when there may only be one person home, we need you to go downstairs and either run the water, we have to check the pipes, or we're going to have to go and check the fuse panel downstairs. They try to get that individual out of the main entry area of the house to go to another location, and while they isolate that person in another place in the house, a second individual will come in and rifle through the bedroom. And believe me, everybody thinks they have great hiding spots. The people that do it for a living, breaking into homes like this, they know all the hiding spots. So they're going to check under the dressers, they're going to check in the closets, they're going to check any safes. If the safe is small enough, that safe is going out with them. And the whole time the victim has no idea they're even in the house, because the person is downstairs in the cellar, putting the water on, shutting the water off. The suspects generally are in communication with either a walkie-talkie or a cell phone.
Wow.
It's not uncommon for them to say, they were speaking Spanish, even though there's some legitimate question as to whether or not the language is actually Spanish. And they communicate with each other. And then when the house has been ransacked or the bedroom's been ransacked, they go out, they jump in the vehicle, the person that is tying up this individual says, okay, we're all set, thanks very much, they're out the door and gone. And many times it's a couple of hours before the victim even realizes that they've been impacted.
Right.
Very frustrating
Yeah.
and very difficult to track.
You know, it's funny, the same situation happened in my own family with my aunt. And when she was drawn outside, she locked the door to the house. They were in the backyard, and the second guy, who she didn't even realize was out there, showed up and said, hey, you got to let me into the house. He was angry because she locked the door.
Yeah.
Right.
And when the neighbors saw what was going on, they came and rescued her. So,
And that's another very common occurrence as well. People will come up to your door and say they're going to be installing a fence in your backyard.
Yeah, that's what they do to her.
Or we're going to be chopping down some trees on your neighbor's property. We want to know where the property line
Right.
is. Anything to get you out of the house and
Right.
away from the front door, and the same scenario takes place. People are in and out. Sometimes it takes them 5 or 10 minutes. And, you know, I've seen cases, there have been some recently in the North Shore and in the western part of Metro West area, where I know one of the victims lost $75,000 in cash just within the last month.
Wow.
There were 2 in one city in one day and 2 in another town a different day. I think within a couple of days. I'm sure it's the same people, but, you know, we're talking millions of dollars collectively, and some of these hits are $100,000 a whack.
unbelievable.
So I think people should just be careful to not react and panic and say, all right, well, let's let you in. Maybe there's work going on down your street, so just not assume that it might be the legit people.
Right.
So at least lock your door, or again, call law enforcement is going to be critical in this type of situation to say, I have these people wanting to go inside my house.
Yeah.
And someone that you don't know or you didn't ask for shouldn't be going into your home without your permission.
It's probably even worth saying, let me call the police and make sure this is legitimate. You know what?
Yeah.
If they say, sure, go ahead, and they stay there, it's probably legitimate. And if they say, never mind, we'll go someplace else, then you've probably saved yourself a lot of aggravation.
So just shifting a little bit on other types of scams. There's so many different scams. I think every day people are getting victimized, and this is such important information. I want to shift a little bit because I've been seeing a lot on the news and just our customers with skimmers. Tell us what skimmers are, and
There are 2 common scams on the market or in the world right now that we're seeing on almost a daily basis. One of them would be the ATM skimmers, where the individuals, and this could be in a bank lobby, it could be on an outside drive-up bank. In a lot of cases, it's the small ATM machines that go in a lot of these grocery and convenience stores. And the criminals actually have a device that kind of slips over the slot where you put your card in to get your money out. And they're also able to install a miniature camera directly over where the pin, where the numbers are, the pin pad. And they'll go in, they may leave it there for a couple of hours, they may leave it there for a couple of days, and then when you go back in, you retrieve all this data, you have all of the coding on the credit cards because it memorizes that, and then they match it up to the camera, which is taking a picture of the pin pad. And, you know, if you're not careful, before you know it, they have newly encoded credit cards, and they are going to town at every retailer and, institution, ATM, in the area. We've seen, it's been going on all over the country. They tend to stay in one area at a time, for a period of a few weeks, and then they'll move on. The ATM skimmers, it's mostly Eastern European based. Most of the people that are involved in that, where it's organized. There is another group that's based mostly out of South America that are targeting gas pumps. And what they have done is they've figured out a way, it's easy enough to get a key to open the gas pump, and they have installed another skimming device on the inside of the gas
You
pump.
can't even see it.
You can't even see it. The only way you become aware of it is when your credit card ends up getting used,
Right.
maybe a month from now, and you say, what the heck happened to my credit card? And you find hundreds of thousands of dollars charged against your credit card. And you
Or
say,
sometimes within minutes.
well, it can happen, yeah. Well, if they get the information and they can encode it themselves, then they can do it themselves. But, sometimes it's been known to send all that information down to Florida, and within a week by UPS or FedEx, they get a brand new credit card with a fake identity, a fake name, and they go to town with it. The gas pump skimmers, it's insidious because you don't know you're
Right.
being targeted because everything is in the machine. One thing that you can keep an eye out for, though, is a lot of gas stations now have come to putting a little a wire piece of tape, piece of plastic tape or a seal on the door of the pump.
Right.
It's either going to be where the key goes in. If you see a piece of tape that's been tampered with, it's been cut open, there's a pretty legitimate chance that there might be a skimmer on that inside the gas pump. And again, I've seen video of the people putting the skimmers in the pumps, 35 seconds.
Right.
They pull up close to the pump, nobody sees them, they put the skimmer in, and now with the new technology that's out there, there is ability to retrieve that through a Bluetooth means. So they don't even have to go to the pump to get it. They get it, they download it.
Unbelievable.
So if they see something, they should definitely report that to either the bank or the gas station.
Yeah, if it's at the gas station, certainly notify the attendant at the gas station, say, there's a problem. I myself, I was at one gas station in Wilmington I use religiously. I told them 3 or 4 times, I said, you got to put a seal on your pump. How do I know it's not tampered with?
Right.
Now I go to the gas station down the street because the seal is there.
Right.
So you'd think that the business people would be attuned to their customers' needs,
Right.
but sometimes they don't care.
Interesting.
From the financial institution side, our advice to our customers is if you see debit card transactions or credit card transactions that are not authorized by you, call your bank, call your credit card company right away so we can shut it down immediately.
I
A
think,
lot more scams.
Yeah, we talked about the IRS scam, the grandparent scam. Talk a little bit about that. And then the most interesting part, you talked about how they legitimize the scam to the victim.
I know you've talked on previous programming about these phone calls that come in where there's a voice on the end of the phone that says, Graham, I'm in trouble, can you help me out? Well, most grandparents, their natural reaction is to try to help their grandchild, if they have a grandchild. And most grandparents, if they're not sure which grandchild, they might say, Ken, is that you? Or Premier, is that you? You go, yeah, it's me. I'm in trouble, I got arrested, or I was in an accident. And as soon as they have your name, they start working you for trying to get money for a lawyer, or they have to pay a fine to get out of jail. Please don't tell my parents. And as grandparents, I'm a grandparent now, my little ones are too small, but I understand how grandparents think. You want to protect your grandchild. And I'm not going to tell their parents because we have this good bond. And so many of them are scammed for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars because somebody gets on the phone and said, I'm Agent Jones from, the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. You have to send a prepaid card, whether it be a Green Dot Money card or it might be an iTunes card. Go to Walmart, pick up a $500 Walmart card and send me the number, send me the information, and once we get it, we'll release your grandson.
So what you're saying is the initial call comes from the person who's allegedly the grandchild.
Right.
And then another person comes on the line and says, this is the law enforcement person, now with your granddaughter, your grandson.
Could be a lawyer.
They use some other
make up some
authoritarian type of person
Yeah.
who tries to convince you even further that this is a legitimate situation and you need to send money.
Yeah, and then to take it another step, once you hang up from this individual, you may get another phone call from a person purporting to be law enforcement or a supervisory agent from the district attorney's office saying, this is legitimate, are you going to send this money? I just want to let you know it's a real case. So, you have to kind of vet these things before you send any money.
Yeah.
Call.
How do you vet them?
Well, try to call your grandson. And they're going to tell you don't call anybody, but the first thing you want to do is call your granddaughter, grandson if you think it's them that's in trouble.
Right.
And again, I see it every single week. It happens multiple times. I see it in the daily police logs and the agencies around here. Everybody is prone to fall victim, and these people do it all day long, so they get very good at what their racket is.
Right.
If they are successful once or twice out of 500, they're still making a couple of $1,000s or more.
Absolutely.
It's easy money for them.
Right.
And in many cases, they're based overseas. They're not even in this country.
That's
They
right.
could be, in Africa. They could be in Canada. They might have a local person, a stooge, that they'll hire out, go cash this check for us. But we'll never chase them down. And the law enforcement end of it, it's just unending. It's very labor intensive, very a lot of man hours.
Right.
And let's face it, if you can get your money back instead of going to court, you're going to try to get your money back. And we see this consistently with all of these scams. Very difficult to prosecute because ultimately your victim wants to get their money back.
Right.
They don't want to wait 6 months or a year from now to go to court against somebody. Just the way it is.
Chris, this is so much important information, and one of the things Ken and I say all the time, and we're a strong believer, is knowledge is power. We really hope that our viewers today have tuned in and have listened to these types of things that are going on, because it's actually happening every single day. It's probably happening as we speak in some
Sure
neighborhoods.
it is, yeah.
And it's as simple as calling a friend, calling law enforcement is probably your best friend at that point.
Right.
They're just probably a few miles away from your home. They can send a police officer to help you out. People shouldn't feel pressured into something that they're not really ready for. Take a moment, take a step back, think, because money is important. We all
Right.
work very hard for our money and protecting our information. So we thank you so much for coming
Nice
on
to
our
be here.
show. Ken, any closing remarks?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We at the break we mentioned we've hardly scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There is so much information, and your knowledge is so vast with everything that's going on. We may have to reconsider and have Chris back for another show.
Be happy to
Now,
do it.
I'm sure that he enjoyed the lunch at the Athenian Corner, particularly the rice pudding, but it would be more than that. We would actually have to find another place for lunch on that particular day. Have Chris come
Absolutely.
back, we'll do the show again, and we can touch some other subjects that I know he has a lot of knowledge about.
Absolutely.
Be very happy to
Thank
join
you.
you again.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, this has been Enterprise Bank Presents Dollars and Cents. We hope you've enjoyed this edition. We'll be back with another show in a few months, but until then, watch this show, enjoy it, and please learn from what we've had to say here today. Take care.